Hey everybody, it's Master Galengeist here, bringing you my review for the season finale of The Wheel of Time, The Eye of the World. And I really didn't enjoy this episode. Out of the entire season, I think this is my least favorite episode. Mainly because it goes and it does weird ass things with strange execution of how it goes about. Now, granted enough, the changes that it gets into the effect of certain changes are made that really don't land well. I'm not opposed to making changes, especially within adaptations. They just have to be executed and done well. Here, it. Whenever you're doing a season finale and often enough trying to craft a nice closure point for the main story that you're telling while also continuing to have enough leaping forward for another season that we've already gotten that they're going to be doing, it's always a tough balancing act. I get that. I've seen enough of them to understand that fact. Because usually you either don't get as much closure as you want and get a cliffhanger where you're like, great, and the main story just keeps going and going and going. Not the main story, like there's the overarching plot, but usually a season's got a certain thing where you can at least get an end goal out of and at least tie up certain things. This tried to do a lot of that and just not really land those things. So, and the thing is, it was definitely different than the book. I had to kind of like go back and kind of see what kind of changes that they made. At least look over the the Wikipedia for like how it kind of went down. I'm like, this was really fucking different than what kind of happened. Now I understand we're going that this is like another turning of the wheel, so it's not going to happen exactly like what's going on, but that doesn't excuse certain like death fake outs and shit. All right, I I don't mind having stakes involved in that our heroes can get hurt or killed. However, if you go the route that The Walking Dead went, where you're like, okay, we kind of have an understanding of, if you've read the comics or at least understand what's going on with what happened with Glenn, you're like, all right, they keep faking out his death, so the point is like, sweet Jesus, it's like, you're either going to commit or you're not. And it's just like, alrighty then. So, this starts off in a thing that is both good and bad. Let me explain. This starts off showing us Lews Therin Telamon pretty much relating his plan to the Amyrlin seed of the time, like 3,000 years ago, and I guess trying to do kind of a thing to show the connection with his daughter and whatnot. Now, I do kind of like the juxtaposition we got, him wearing black, the Amyrlin seed wearing white. Where I get kind of funky with it is that it's done in a different kind of language, which necessarily isn't a bad thing. However, it goes at such a speed that it's kind of hard to like keep up with it because they're going back and forth with it. So you're pretty much learning that he is trying to seal the Dark One, make a prison and everything, and the Amyrlin seat isn't having any of it. Pretty much trying to hit on his pride and everything like that. However, you're getting more that she's got pride with it as well. Granted, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but they're just both being kind of... It's trying to present that they're both being kind of dicks, I hope. That's at least what I got out of it. I'm like, he wants to protect some things, and he's going to go through with this plan. It's like, alright, you still need to kind of tell me why this is kind of like a hubristic kind of thing for him to do. Because that's the whole kind of rub that I get with this scene as well, is that she never really goes into a specific of like why it's a bad idea and what incidentally enough he's trying to like do. I mean, they talk about like the one power being corrupted or touched by the Dark One potentially, but they don't go into any kind of real specifics on how that kind of works. Now, I'm not saying I need an in-depth nuts and bolts kind of diving on that kind of matter, but I kind of wanted a little bit more kind of information and nuance of what's going on here. And I think, incidentally enough, going for just 8 episodes for a season kind of vastly limited what they needed to do because we have to cut for other things. Which, of course, the pandemic has affected kind of how certain scenes are kind of presented going kind of forward. So, We mainly then get the rest of the episode split between Fal Dara and them having to deal with the Trollocs, and Rand and Moiraine going to the Eye of the World as the Dark One's prison. And after seeing this, I still do not like that kind of change. It doesn't really add anything, and it's just, I don't get why they did it. Like, there's no, like, after seeing it, I'm like, I don't know why they went this way. I don't mind that it would be done this way, but there's nothing even done in the representation of it going on that I'm like, yeah, I understand why you needed to do this. So, what do we want to do? Alright, stuff kind of happens a little bit concurrently, but I'm going to save the Rand and Moiraine stuff for the end, because that would actually dovetail nicely into what's kind of going on. So, most of the people are freaking out. Trollocs pretty much are massing at Tarwin's Gap, and they're pretty much trying to get ready of what's going on. Incidentally enough, the weirdest kind of thing I heard is that they're trying to get all the people that are foreigners out of Fal Dara, but to keep, like, even the women and children to fight. And I'm just like, what? That, like, I understand trying to use as many forces as you need to, but it really showed. I think that this should have been at least bigger, but I understand with the pandemic and everything going on, they could not get the kind of cast and size that would be needed to kind of show this. But it seemed really, really friggin' small of what this kind of was as a border in the Borderlands trying to protect against the Blight, even though usually they don't have, like, a metric fuck ton of people, you know what I mean? So we see that Egelmar and his sister are talking and trying to figure out what's going on. We see that they're the rest of the group try to figure out what's happening. They try and go to Min, trying to see if she can tell them anything that she told Rand or where they'd be going or whatnot. Seeing some weird kind of visions of, like, Egwene and Nynaeve about what's going on. It's like, all right, cool. So they're trying to be like, fine, cool, you couldn't tell us anything, whatever. Egelmar pretty much puts himself in his own armor, and there is their father's armor there, but he wants to do it himself. I get the sibling kind of connection here, but it doesn't really come off as well for me. It's just the content really didn't really get me that well, and the delivery is just like, okay, it's not horrendous. It's not like full soothsay and just like crazy changes or whatnot. It's just like, okay, even though as being a brother who has a sister, it just didn't really like get that kind of connection that some other kind of stories have done with it. It's like, all right, cool, we'll do the things. You protect the town. I'll go to Tarwin's Gap and do shit. So she also then puts herself into the father's armor, and she's like, I need any woman that can like channel. And Nynaeve and Egwene are like, all right, cool, we'll do this. We'll have to protect them. Perrin is pissed off because he wants to be able to do something, and it's just really kind of weird. Mainly because of the pacing of this show. It seems that he's gotten to like rage level for some odd reason at this point. He's like, I should be able to do something. I'm like, okay, why are you so super pissed at this right now? Like, I understand wanting to help Rand and everything like that, but it was just like some kind of explosive anger that I'm just like, alright. Well, I was like, alright, then just ask people what help they need. And then he goes and helps pretty much the guards pretty much uncover the Horn of Valir. That's an important kind of thing within the Wheel of Time, and it can summon heroes from the past as well, so that's a big kind of thing to have. And it was just under the Lord's seat. It's like, alright, interesting. So he's kind of helping him dig that out. It doesn't really sound even that interesting, even though I'm kind of explaining it. It's just like, alright, cool. Set up kind of thing, doing this kind of thing. It's alright. And Loial's kind of just there. Let's see. We see the Tarwin's Gap kind of thing going on, and we see that Egelmar has really a very small force, and they go up, and the Trollocs were pretty much just standing there waiting. Now, I understand Fades usually like compel them to do shit, and I was watching this with my mom, and she brought up a very important point. If the Trollocs are usually afraid of like deep water, why didn't they build a moat? Now, granted, I understand irrigation and, like, doing everything that would be related to, like, aquatic engineering of that kind of feat would be very difficult, but it's like a really enclosed thing, kind of Helm's Deep-ish, where you got this little wall and this small passage. It's like, moat would have worked there. But we really don't get that much, which is really weird. We get Agelmar trying to essentially have a kind of Aragorn kind of speech, like, let's do this shit. And then they, like, ride out on their horses, and then they actually go into the wall, and I'm like, why did you just do a cavalry scene if you were just going to be in a wall? Very strange choice to me. I'm like, alright, I understand using cavalry against Trollocs. Really wouldn't be that kind of great in that kind of passage because horses would clog everything up. They wouldn't really be of use. Cavalry would have been better use on an open kind of plain kind of thing, where you're able to get around, flank, use your horses to actually box in the enemy for certain kind of things, to like maneuvers and all that. And the Trollocs are just like, oh, and I'm like, I kind of get it. Budget probably got involved, so they just pretty much had the Trollocs stand by in kind of loading screen mode. And then Engelmar's like, let's do this shit, Leroy Jenkins. And then we see them kind of like busting ass to the wall, pretty much World War Z zombie. They are able to like beat the shit out of the wall pretty fucking easily. I'm like, shouldn't it take at least a little bit more to do this? Or at least more specialized tools? Because the Trollocs like, and he's like shooting like a couple of them, but then he gets like thrown at a spear, and that's the end of him. I'm like, huh. Like, I felt like there was more kind of shit with him in the books, and I'm just like, alright. Now granted, I understand that not every book character that had importance in the books is going to be able to get the same amount of importance in the show. I get that. I'm just like, I don't even... I understand that we're being shown that a lord is doing his lordly duty, trying to protect all the lands from the Dark One and all that. It's just, it didn't really jive with me. Okay. So then we see his sister has gotten 2 other channelers, and Egwene and Nynaeve, and even though this scene becomes kind of problematic to me, it does show an important kind of lore thing of, okay, we got that his sister can only channel so much of the One Power. However, if you link up with others who can channel, you can kind of increase the amount of power that you can do with the One Power. So it was cool in being showcasing of that, while also showing the effects of burning yourself out. This also kind of changes what kind of goes on, because it was in the books that Rand utilized channeling to wipe out the Trolloc army that was going after Tarwin's Gap. I'm like, okay, now I understand changing certain things up for what's going on, and this actually helps us learn lore-wise and kind of what goes on with channeling in this kind of way, and also getting linked up with people and not being able to more effectively stop someone from like fucking you over, because she burns out 2 of them. She's like, first it's going all right. She's like, do 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 do, like you motherfucking boom, doing some kick-ass shit. But then she's like, keeps drawing it in, and it becomes too much for her, and it pretty much burns out the 2 other ones. Starts to burn out Nynaeve. She's able to kind of like save Egwene before she burns out, and I'm like, are they really going to kill her? I'm like, wow, this is going to introduce some problems. And then the thing is, they're safe. The Trollocs are pretty much fucked over and completely gone. And Egwene is just like sad over Nynaeve, and then is able to heal out of nowhere because it feels more like an ass fool and the plot demands it to like bring her back. So this is that kind of death fake out that I really do not like. I do not have patience for those kinds of things. And what I mean, seeing that a character comes back or whatnot from the dead, as long as it's executed well, works in my opinion. Now granted, it kind of like depends upon how it's presented and what it kind of achieves. Here, it's just like, shit, we kind of wanted to show some stakes, but if we kill Nynaeve, that creates a lot of narrative problems for us. So they just pull that Egwene's able to heal like this. Now, not saying that Egwene cannot, but she hasn't really been shown to have the propensity for it. Whereas Nynaeve, even when she did not really have full control of her power, healing was an integral part of her kind of character. so it made sense that healing would be kind of like her go-to kind of thing. Egwene, we haven't seen or had any kind of thing like that to happen here, but she's able to heal her like that with pretty much no repercussions whatsoever, and it's like, alright. And you're like, okay, that's good that we don't have any narrative problems, but I hope that this doesn't become a pattern. Yes, I understand when I said that how it worked out. I didn't try that. The minute my brain said it, the minute my mouth said it, I'm like, I get it. Pattern. I'm just like, alright, don't make that a habit, alright? Which I think they actually fucking did again in this episode, because we then see that Perrin's helping out, and then suddenly out of fuck all nowhere, Padan Fain comes out, kills pretty much most of the people that were, digging out the Horn of Valor. Is like, yeah, I want the horn, and he stabs Loial with the dagger from Shadar Logoth, which, how the fuck he got that, I have no fucking clue. That's another kind of thing that's like, why? Now, he is supposed to get the dagger and be connected to Shadar Logoth and all that kind of things and shit, but you can't just like thunderplop and dump something like that and just be like, here, this is a thing. It's like, I kind of need context, bro. Like, fuck. But he then proceeds to info dump his own kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, I've been coming to your shitty little town because there's 5 Tavir in there, and the Dark One wants you guys. Some of you will go light, some of you will go for the dark. And then we see that, like, Mat is, like, going creepy ass fade, like, dude, being like, he, and Tar-Valon. I'm like, why is he even there? Now, granted, in the books, his healing of the whole thing with the dagger from Shadar Logoth is kind of more of an ordeal, so this might be hinting that there's more to that. But I understand that this thing is trying to accomplish that there is a balancing act going on between the light and the dark. Though, to be honest, I don't know how you're fucking going to say that it's, like, balanced towards the light at this point. He even tries to call Perrin out because Perrin grabs an axe to kind of like defend this stuff because he was lamenting like the way the leaf and shit like that. He's like, oh look, first sighted thing, you turn to the dark. I'm like, motherfucker, you're trying to like kill and murder people. Just because violence can be used for evil ends and goes into like crazy kind of things doesn't mean that like him picking up an axe means he's going to violent dark ends just off the bat. I'm like, even what he did in the beginning, accidentally killing Layla, wasn't really a dark thing. He felt remorse over it because he was in a battle tactics kind of mindset and thought it was probably another Trolloc popping up out of nowhere because those motherfuckers were trying to kill and eat his friends and family and townsfolk. Like, really? Because there is a difference between going, I'm gonna go and take those motherfuckers out, and I'm gonna go and protect my people. You know what I mean? Like, you can call that a dark end all you want, but, like, you got people like Captain America going around with a shield trying to protect people and, like, punching and kicking and shit. It's like, yeah. And I understand what they were trying to do. It's just clumsy in its execution and its messaging. It's like, alright, and then he just walks away like, I'm a badass, with no kind of weird repercussions for handling, I don't know, Shadar Logoth dagger. I mean, even the Fades were kind of like fucking freaked out by his ass being like, fuck you, man, because it was technically a third kind of elemental kind of force going into effect, and it's like kind of related to the dark, but even the dark's like, the fuck are you, man? Get the fuck out of my shit. That's in the books. So that kind of leads towards the ending kind of stuff. Before all this kind of went down, Nynaeve was able to kind of talk with Lan, and she's like, I want my people back, so I'm going to tell you how to track Moiraine, because we learned that Nynaeve wasn't able to track Lan. She was only able to track Moiraine because of what was going on. And he's like, thank you, and really expresses his feelings for her and how he likes her and all that. It's like, okay, nice moment. So that was kind of cool, but then he kind of goes off to link up with them. So let us shift to the other side. And this still has some kind of problems. Not that I mind how they show the Blight, but it does really get kind of samey location-wise, so it's like, alright, cool, so they're just walking around. He's pretty much trying to figure out Moraine's kind of shit going down. And he's like, am I gonna be able to like utilize the one power when I need to? And she's talking about how she had problems as well. Talking about how her teacher, I think that was alluding to Katsune, if I'm pronouncing that right, she's an important figure. How she could not really channel the one power at first before her mentor came in and pretty much beat the shit out of her before it was like fight or flight mode and she was able to channel more effectively. And she's like, when it comes down to it, you'll figure out how to do it. It's like, alright, cool. So they keep going, trying to figure it out. We do get kind of more of a kind of trust thing going on with them. I do like how they were kind of developing that kind of thing going on with Moraine and Rand. They kind of go to sleep. Rand has a dream about Baalzamon, who is Aishamel. And it's really kind of weird because he like shoots an arrow at him and his like weird craggly kind of like face kind of just dissipates, and then we see him as Aishamel. And my main kind of problem is not with the actor himself, I think. It's more with the content and the directors for how they had him portray Aishamel. I don't get any kind of like foreboding feeling from this person or any kind of danger or whatnot. He's just in black overcoat with a white robe, kinda. I think symbolizing like duality and stuff like that. You know what we usually see throughout the series. And he's just like, do you even know what you can do and shit, man? I mean, yeah, you're definitely him reborn because he's known him. And really, they need to bring up the stuff with the Forsaken of what their kind of goals and aims are and why they would turn to the dark, because they're not even really talked about much. Now, granted, it's because they only have 8 episodes and they got a lot of shit to cover, but that's kind of important lore shit. So he's just trying to pretty much feel out Rand. In the dream, he pretty much killed Moraine and everything like that. And like, all right. He's pretty much trying to get a feel for him and be like, why are you doing this shit? And Rand's like, fuck you, man. And he's like, what sword? Heronmark sword? It's like, how did you even get that? From your father? Oh, you don't even know your father. Just kind of that kind of thing. And then he does wake up. He's like, what the fuck's going on? And Morin's like, what's going on? She's like, yeah, nothing. Doesn't really tell her completely what kind of happened. But then they continue on, and they eventually get to the Eye of the World, and it's like, alright, this is following more like Shale Ghul. Not really, because that was just a cave kind of thing. They just kind of go down. He's like, I've been here before, and he sees stuff from like Luther and Telamon and everything, and then get pretty much pulled into a dream world by Aishamel. And then we see kind of 2 things going on at once. Rand's whole thing, which echoes more of the shit that we see in the last battle, actually, in the final book, than in the first book. Because it's more of a metaphysical kind of battle, and a battle of, like, ways of thinking more than anything. Whereas then we see that Moraine's there, and Aishamel is kind of in 2 places at once. I'll get you, and then he pretty much shields and, like, gentles her. Wait. Stills her. Yes. Sorry. Gentle is for male channelers, still is for female. Which is a choice that I am not happy with, because it really shifts up and makes things weird. Because, see, the main thing is she had master bond with Lan, and I don't know how this is going to kind of affect that kind of shit. And it's definitely a vast departure from, like, the time period that Moraine has a kind of thing similar to this happen. But he's able to do it like that. Now, granted, as one of the Forsaken and usually kind of a powerful channeler, yes, he should be able to do that pretty quickly as well, especially since Moraine was trying to figure out what was kind of going on with Rand. But he's kind of gloating, and he's like, yeah, I'm pretty much going to get him to turn into the dark. And she's like, if he makes that choice, I'm going to kill his ass. And she pretty much has a blade to his throat and kind of bleeds and everything like that. We then see that Rand is living an idyllic life with Egwene and his daughter. And I was just like, okay, you're able to have a toddler, like, kind of older baby here, but you gave us that CGI kind of weird-ass thing? I'm like, okay. Strange choices to just CGI a baby like that, but alright. But we see it's a nice kind of life, and Rand's like, oh, this is cool. And he's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? didn't you kind of want to go to the White Tower and all that kind of stuff? Trying to figure everything out. She's like, no, I'm just here with you. And then, of course, it freezes, and Aishamel's like, yeah, this is the life you could have if you do it well enough. And the thing is, before they went into the final battle, well, into this battle, Moiraine's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. She gives her, fuck me. She gives him a Sa'angreal, which is used to, like, increase power. This one doing, like, 100-fold. And she's just like, channel into it and fucking hoo-ha. That's pretty much the extent of the plan. That becomes important because he's trying to, like, tell him, like, not all bad. Like, the thing is, it's fine, but he doesn't really, again, it's like the beginning of this. He doesn't really delve as much into, like, his reasonings or why Rand should be, like, trusting of him or even try and understand his point of view. Now, we didn't really get that kind of stuff. Did we? Granted, it's been a while. It's more towards the kind of end that after they've been kind of, like, fighting each other. Now, granted, there is some kind of stuff in the beginning where they try and be like, hey, here's a little bit of this. We don't really get that much here. It's just like, hey, this can be real for you. Just focus and try and make that baby real. It's like, really? That's like end game level stuff in the book, because that leads to a whole little other thing of, like, being able to, like, manifest shit like that. Now, granted, you can use fire. It's the usual stuff that we've seen with channeling. You can, like, do with the elements and shit like that. But to, like, magically make a baby pop up, like, out of nowhere, it's a big feat. And we see Rand kind of, like, pulling in the one power and trying to figure out what to do with it. And he's like, you know what? Screw you. Puts it all in there, wakes up in the real world with the Sa'angreal, and just thunder blasts Aishamel. And I'm like, what happened? See, the thing is, this is getting a lot different than what was kind of going on in the books. It's just like, okay. And of course, this, like, helps to, like, make sure that everything's kind of stopped at the other place at Valdara. And it's just, what the fuck? And we see that the seal with the ancient Aes Sedai symbol is blasted. And it's like, what the fuck? And the Sa'angreal is destroyed, I believe. So then he's like, alright, I'm probably going to go mad, so just tell my friends that I didn't make it here, and I'm going to go away because I don't want to hurt people. It's like, okay, that tracks with Rand's stuff usually, and we'll kind of see how that kind of works for him as he kind of leaves. Lan pops up like, okay, unmask the bond. She's like, I can't do that because I can't touch the power anymore. And of course, Moiraine can't lie, but he's like, all right, where's Rand? He's like, not here. And he's like, what happened to the seal? Isn't this made out of Swendalar? Heartstone. Pretty much think of it like vibranium, adamantium, really tough ass shit, but mainly more of a stone. And they're like, not even the one power can, like, break this. What does this mean? Shit's afoot, man. You see Rand kind of, like, bucking through the blighted kind of territories. And I'm like, alright. Because this is kind of a different kind of spot than the Eye of the World kind of left off. And it's mainly down to the execution and the contents of things that kind of happened. Now, I understand the pandemic has thrown everything into, like, shit confusion and shit, you know what I mean? It has affected writing, directing, being able to get people, being able to do certain things as well, so I get that that is a factor here. However, most of the other episodes that we have had, even with that in mind, have been better than this episode, in my opinion. And I just don't kind of like how they did it. It kind of landed with a wet thud to me. Now, does it mean that I think that it's complete crap and that I'm not going to watch it? No. Though they are going to have to work to make it more executable to what's kind of doing it so that way it works. It's just for, like, I'm thinking, okay, Rand, the Horn of Valyr, what the fuck's going on with Padan Fain? What the fuck is going on with Mat? If Loial is dead or not, that's another death fake out that's kind of like, what? Moiraine being stilled or not? There's just a lot of variables that affect how this narrative can go on, and it could spin into kind of crazier and crazier changes that can vastly affect the narrative if it is not done well. However, they have done good enough changes and good enough kind of shakeups throughout the bulk of the middle of the series, from like episode 3 to episode 7, that I do think that they have a good shot of at least kind of course correcting on certain things. So I have to kind of see with that. Oh, and also we got the teaser cliffhanger kind of thing that we just go to some random beach, girls kind of playing on it. Or see the Sean Chan popping up, being like, yo, 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 and they got like their captive slave channelers utilizing the one power to do a tidal wave to pretty much kill this little girl, which is wrong, so fuck them. But they're an important part of the second book and what's kind of going on, because it delves into the legend of Artur Hawkwing. Artur Hawkwing. Suck my balls. Damn it. Anyway, Artur Hawkwing, a legendary figure who had united and even kind of fought against the White Tower, be like, don't do that shit. And they're like, eat me, motherfucker. And there's like, rah, rah, rah. And they're like, rah, rah, rah. It's like, alright, cool, fine, whatever. And that's an over-dramatic and oversimplification of that kind of thing. But, yeah, you kind of get the diff. And he had, like, sent some people over to another continent and be like, hey, find that shit. Never heard from him again. Until now, it's like, hey, we found that shit. Look at that shit. Bitch. And they're like, we're gonna do this. Now, granted, that ruler becomes an important and integral part of Matt's story, so we'll see kind of how that kind of works out. Especially because there are other characters that are vastly important to the story as well. I mean, we didn't even go to Camelin. We didn't get introduced to Morghese and Elaine and, Gawain. Yes. Fucking that character. And all these other kind of characters as well that are part of Andor and kind of pivotal to the series and everything. So that's got to be brought in. So there's a lot of spinning plates that they're going to have to kind of like merge and change, and we'll have to see how that kind of works out. I hope they give them more episodes, or they're able to make the story fit better within the episodes that they have. That's the whole kind of thing. Just because a show does really well with a certain amount of episodes doesn't mean that that fits every story. Okay? So if the story needs 22 episodes, utilize your 22 episodes well. If it just needs 8 episodes, utilize those 8 episodes well. So I didn't like this one, but I still like the series overall and hope that like any other problems kind of get shaken out as the series progresses. And I hope they get shaken out rather than get worse and doubled down on. We'll just kind of have to see with that. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.